Hi there, it's Miss Shari, and we're ready for chapter 4 to read more. Did you make yourself some hot cocoa and some buttery cinnamon toast? I wanted to, but I didn't because I wanted to finish the story with you. So let's get ready for chapter 4, The Inn Again. Hans ran, skipped, and slid happily down the trail from the Misty Mountains. He knew that his mother would be so happy with the gift he had received from the North Wind. He made it to the inn just in time for supper and a rest before going home. When he knocked on the inn door this time, he knew he would only have to chop enough wood for his room because the tablecloth would make him a fine supper. The innkeeper's wife answered the door.
You again? Good grief! I suppose you want supper and a room again, don't you?
She squawked at Hans. Yes, he answered. May I chop some more wood for you?
Well, you chopped lots of wood last time. We don't need so much wood now.
Hans's cheeks rose in a little smile. Oh, that's okay. I have my supper with me. I will just need to chop enough wood to pay for my room.
Humph!
Said the innkeeper's wife.
I'll ask my husband.
And then she closed the door and left Hans standing outside in the cold. Inside, the innkeeper's wife said to her husband,
That boy is back. I told you he'd come, and you know what? That flour sack is bulging. He wants to chop wood for us, his room.
Well, he's just a boy. Let him chop a little wood. Then the innkeeper said, But isn't he hungry? Won't he need some supper as well?
He says he has his food with him.
Well then, tell him we will hold a room for him. The innkeeper's wife went back to Hans and told him what her husband said. Then she asked him,
Do you want me to take your flour sack to your room for you?
Oh, no, thank you, ma'am, Hans said. Then he disappeared with the axe to chop the wood. The innkeeper's watched Hans walk behind the woodpile and thought to herself,
I knew it. There must be something precious in that old flour sack. I'll get it from him somehow and find out.
When Hans had chopped enough wood to fill the wood box again, he found a table inside the inn, took the tablecloth out of the flour sack, and, when the innkeeper and his wife were talking in the kitchen, Hans whispered, Tablecloth, tablecloth, make me a meal. And before he took his next breath, the dinner was there. Sliced roasted turkey, peas and little potatoes and a clear sauce, warm rice pudding, and a frosty mug of milk to wash it all down. By the time the innkeeper and his wife returned to the dining room, Hans was already eating. Where did he get all that food? The innkeeper's wife asked her husband. I'm sure I don't know, wife. He must have brought it with him, somehow.
Well, that tablecloth has something to do with it, she said. Tonight, when he is asleep, we will sneak into his room and take it.
No, we won't, said the innkeeper.
Yes, we will, and don't worry, husband, he will never know. I have another tablecloth just like it, and we will put it in place of his. He'll never know.
While Hans ate, the innkeeper's wife talked and talked to the innkeeper until he finally decided to help her. When Hans was finished eating, he took the dishes and the empty mug to the innkeeper. You may keep these for your inn, Hans told him. Thank you for the room. I will be leaving first thing in the morning. I am anxious to get home to my mother. Thank you, young man, said the innkeeper. Sleep well. Hans smiled at the innkeeper. The innkeeper's wife watched Hans fold the tablecloth neatly and put it in the flour sack. When Hans was safely out of sight, she said,
You see, there's something about that tablecloth.
That may be true, wife, but it's his tablecloth. It would be wrong to take it from the boy. Again she said,
He'll never know we've taken it. We'll put one exactly like it back in the flour sack.
Late that night, when Hans was asleep, the innkeeper and his wife crept up to his room and silently opened the door. There was the flour sack hanging from the coat rack right beside the door. All they had to do was reach in and get it. Just as she was about to do that, she heard the innkeeper whisper in her ear,
Don't you do it.
The innkeeper's wife spun around, grabbed the innkeeper's hand, and thrust it toward the coat rack. She hooked the flour sack onto his hand and lifted the sack off the coat rack. She took the magic tablecloth out of the sack and handed the other tablecloth to the innkeeper.
Here, put this into the flour sack.
The innkeeper frowned at his wife, but did as she said and put the tablecloth into the flour sack and replaced it on the coat rack. "Now let's leave the poor boy in peace," the innkeeper said. And they left. The next morning, Hans did leave early. It was so early that the innkeeper and his wife were still asleep. Hans wanted to go home in time to surprise his mother with a wonderful breakfast. And just in case it's time for your breakfast, I'm going to stop here before chapter 5, because you got to have breakfast to keep alive. See you in a few.